Thanks, Noel, and good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Um, in the last 3 years, 100 million new internet users have come online in ASEAN. The region's digital economy's gross merchandise value has crossed 200 billion US dollars, 3 years ahead of expectations. This is happening at a time when artificial intelligence seems to have crossed a threshold with large language models like ChatGPT. And at the same time, ASEAN has young demographics, its infrastructure is improving rapidly, and there's a lot of new investments coming into the region. But it's also not without its complications. There are large segments of the population where digital penetration is low. The region faces multiple social challenges from healthcare to the environment. So, how can companies navigate these complexities while also optimizing for these new opportunities when it comes to digitization and AI? And at the same time, we are Invest ASEAN after all. How can investors think about the digital and AI future for ASEAN? To discuss this, I've got an absolutely amazing panel. Combined, Jennifer, Michele, and Sam bring their deep experience in executing in ASEAN across the value chain, from startups to scale businesses to venture capital. So welcome to you all. And at the same time, I also like to welcome a very special guest on screen. I also welcome ChatGPT.
Hi, Tilan. I am ChatGPT. Thank you for inviting me to Invest ASEAN 2023 as a panelist. I am so happy to be here today to discuss how AI can affect the ASEAN region with these wonderful people we have here today.
All right, great. So let's get into it. So my first question is actually to all three of you. Actually, as a region, unlike say the EU or the US, or ASEAN is not really a homogeneous region. Its members have varying cycles of economic development, very different demographics, different consumption patterns, with also vastly different digital infrastructure. With your mandates of scaling in the ASEAN region, how do you perceive this same but different challenge within your own businesses and divisions? So let's start with Michele first.
Hi everyone, and thank you for having me. As mentioned, in case you're not familiar with StashAway, we are a digital investment platform. So, and as mentioned by Tilan, we operate across the region. We are in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and we are in Hong Kong and Dubai as well. So, to your question, obviously there is quite a variety of different steps, from Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, maybe on the higher side of wealth per person, to Malaysia and Thailand being maybe slightly behind in that sense. Our approach at StashAway has been to actually try to have one common platform and one common brand across all the countries. And we try to localize some of the communication, some of the language, and obviously whatever the regulator asks us to kind of localize, so some parts of the KYC and AML process. I personally am a believer in not over localization. The reality is that, if I put on a branding hat and I think about what is Zara in every country, what is H&M in every country, what is Coca-Cola in every country, what is McDonald's in every country, there is a lot of similarities. What is Citibank, what is Maybank, what is BlackRock. So even in financial services, I actually think that the large brands have a very similar connotation across markets. There are very few exceptions of brands that have built different connotations across different markets. And so as we build StashAway, we actually embraced that logic, again, with the understanding that we need to be relevant to different people in different countries, and that therefore, while we cater mostly to urban clients, so our clients tend to be white-collar professional in their 30s and 40s, and there is a lot of commonalities between these type of people in Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, for instance. We also need to understand that obviously there are some cultural differences that go beyond just the language, for instance. But overall, if I have to condense our thinking in one word or in one sentence, I would say we try to actually build a platform that is as similar as possible across the region in order to build scalability and to serve clients at the best of what our technology enables us to do.
Thanks. Jennifer, anything to add there?
I think it's quite interesting because, when I built it with AI, almost 5 years ago, it's really localization is my mindset. Because, my background is I was born and raised in China, studied in Japan, and in California for 8 years. And I was a VC before. So 2016 is I actually starting to invest in AI. But, you see a lot of fancy things happening around the world, about AI application. But when I come to Southeast Asia, you see big gaps for localization part. Because, you can also, say, I can use this and can use that. Finally, the final, when you come to the banks, the last mile delivery. And what are use cases? It's quite important. I think the same question come back again because recently we have quite a lot of ChatGPT, large language models, and finally, actually, it's how the benefit be you. How is the ROI can be there? What's the tangible business looks like? Actually, this always the cycle we try to do. You have something wow, effect, but you come to the reliability, accountability. There's actually a gap. So currently, the past 4 years, what do we do is actually, number one, we're building one platform, which is good. It's the engine, you can actually building the industry understanding, banking understanding. And second part is you need to really go to the tailor to the, maybe because we're starting from the voice. So we're starting from the voice accents, utterance, the domain data. So that's in that last mile when we actually speak with maybe Singlish, maybe Manglish, maybe localization parts, we can do something better. And also we're building the local teams and say okay, that's something when we actually have the customer be there, we can deliver the on-prem solutions, hybrid models, make sure the security is there. So the past 4 years, past 4 year changes everybody go to centralize, and but localize is something we can see it is quite important. Then now, one come back to the large language model now, actually we are very benefit from there because when you come to there's 2 layers, one's ChatGPT, every human being can feel the benefits of the AI right now. That's actually the moment when you're feeling that's Apple moments, we come to the AI industry. But second one's it's still a comeback again, how can I solving my local problem? Which is if I using large language model, which BU can use first, which use case I can benefit first. That's actually the past 3 months I was talking with so many CEOs, CIO, discuss with that. So I guess it's come to which is you gave us fair angles, good angles, we actually enjoy the whole trend of the things moving. But when you see Southeast Asia in a different company, different industry, different countries, and the student actually localize and think about, hey, that's something we should do. And also we're solving fulfill the gap of that. And also it's happening into your daily life. That's something I think is quite important for that. So I should say in the generalized, we see the good practice from the China, also the California with my previous colleagues. And also the second step is actually localization for translation, how the models and how the use cases really benefits. For example, we have the whole strategy for customer acquisition, omni-channel and then the customer profiling. But the same models when applied for Indonesia and then Malaysia is totally different, even with servicing company. And they told me in the Indonesia, that's a storage, that's a risk scoring you should go to. And this is actually the operation cost should have. But the come to Malaysia is totally different. Even the tech infra and the telecom infra is different because we outreach and actually call people. Or using the WhatsApp strategy to actually getting the people information. So that's actually something we need to have a local team to design. So quite interesting, but I think you have some fundamentally thing, but we are more focused on localization part, yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer. So common platform with some localization to the last mile. Sam, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Dylan, and thanks for having me here. Ventures and Partnerships is a new function at Maybank that we're trying to build out. I think part of the role actually is about identifying and engaging with younger companies. And these younger companies are typically digitally native or digital first, selling products which are enabled digitally or actually digital products and services. And I think there, in the context of this question, these companies tend to be agnostic to geography. And so the type of companies that I'm hoping to identify are those that start off from a home base, try to find product market fit, try to find positive unit economics, really do well from their home geography, and then sort of expand into another geography in the ASEAN region, and then multiple geographies in ASEAN. But there shouldn't really be a limitation to that. I mean, they can take what they've learned as they scale into different types of economies and servicing different types of communities. They can take that to the next level and look at geographies beyond ASEAN. And that's simply because of their new type of business model and that they're sort of digitally native. And I think there's a couple of structural advantages for ASEAN enterprises as they look to do this, going outside ASEAN. The first is that they can really take advantage of a low labor cost and an arbitrage there. And I'll even throw in Singapore to a certain degree because they're able to sort of access ASEAN as a hub. And by that I mean you've got the ASEAN talent pool, sort of young folks, highly educated, highly ambitious and entrepreneurial, and looking to solve for financial independence and for companies that's about really great value for their workforce. So they start off with that as the first advantage, and the second structural advantage is that they are solving right from the start for very diverse customer bases and customer segments, and so they need to kind of build their system architecture right from the beginning to basically empower their customers to hyper-personalize their product and services, and do this even while they are in their home base. So by the time they sort of scale right around ASEAN, it's a little bit more simpler to move into another geography that's perhaps more homogeneous than what we have in this part of the world. So these companies, in my view, are few and far between. I'm very happy that there's actually two of them here up on stage. And if, for everyone in the audience who represents, any of these companies, please come up and reach out to me at the break, because I'm more than happy to have a chat.
Great, thanks, Sam. I want to bring ChatGPT at this stage. We're seeing a frenzy in terms of AI. NVIDIA, for example, added the market cap of Bank of America in one trading session after their first quarter guidance. So my question is, does the average person and corporation really understand AI? So let's start with Chat and then maybe go on to Jennifer.
Sure. I understand your question. Let me explain it for you. The average person and corporation may have varying levels of understanding when it comes to AI. While some may grasp the basics, there is still a significant knowledge gap for many. AI's rapid growth and potential impact make it an important area to comprehend for both individuals and businesses. However, ongoing education and awareness efforts are needed to ensure a broader understanding of AI's capabilities and implications.
Thanks, Chat. What about you, Jennifer?
I think I think there is a two level to answer this question. Mm-hmm. So I think I feel because all the people here actually already maybe understand, starting using ChatGPT, and you can feel the feeling of the products. Means how intelligent it looks like, how it's supposedly look like. That's the one part of that. But if you come to the company level, so I say sometimes if you want to structure the the company's maybe the solution angle, the data angle, security level, actually it's another things because I always feel because before when I actually jump in the VC world, I invest a lot of 2C apps. So 2C app you enjoy Grab, everything's very convenient. But when you actually count back your own company build IM, you feel the gap is there for the interface because there was a lot of security requirement, data requirement. So I guess the question comes to how can we make our product, the to-be phase products or an enterprise level people can feel the same benefits of the thing when you feel outside, when you see the same level of ChatGPT. And the second part is how is actually come back to my questions how is really benefits for your daily to daily. Because it is good, you see there's a lot of survey coming, people try ChatGPT 6 times, but they quit. Because come back to daily, even with the banks, you cannot access so many data with that. You cannot draw your email with that because of security reason. Then you won't actually enjoy that things move into your company's parts. Then that you feel the gap of that. And I feel that one layer is as a company, maybe CIO, CEOs, you see any company or any solution internally, externally can actually starting to build the products actually the employee, they can use, or their department can benefit from that. Or second part is like, can we actually bring that kind of sync experience, like, really into our daily to like, when you grab your internal applications, like, you feel like sync as a grab, like, very convenient. So I think always the 2B companies try to drive in that case. And I feel like, all the employees are judges because they're users. Then they cannot understand what behind that. For example, when you enjoy the washing machine, you don't need to be chemistry, like, be there actually testing behind something like that. But you are the judges actually can feel like it really bringing the benefits or the experience actually good or not. I think that's actually fundamental. I think is quite important.
Yeah. So the experience of it. Actually, that's a good segue to my next question to Sam. You've been in the venture capital industry for a long time, Sam. So, in your experience, which business models and industries do you think AI and digitization has already affected the most? And what are the sort of challenges and opportunities do you think that has actually emerged as a result?
Well, I think we're experiencing right here with this MVP, the minimum viable panelist up on the screen, right? I think about this question in a little bit more narrow sense. There was a Goldman Sachs report that came out last month talking about how 50% of tasks in administrative work or even legal functions are sort of up for disruption by AI compared to construction and maintenance of about sort of 5%. So there will be various impacts around industries, but my perspective is that the impact of AI will impact roles and functions or even tasks that are of a certain type. So any type of task in any industry that is scripted, that is got a objective function that's very quantifiable, that is done in a very short period of time and done multiple times in a day. These types of tasks are definitely up for disintermediation or augmentation by AI, and if you're not careful, replacement by AI.
Thanks for that, Sam. Now, I want to turn to you, Michele, and really think about, when you're running a business in ASEAN at the organizational level for, say, Stashaway, how has AI impacted your business? What has changed in the past 12 months? What are you doing now? And how do you think your business will evolve over the next 12 to 18 months? Do you think now with so much access to AI computing power, is it easier for competitors to come in?
Yeah, so first of all, AI has actually been developing for a very long time. It is true that in the last 6 to 9 months, ChatGPT and more broadly generative AI made it public, but in reality the technology has been developing for decades at this point. And when I look at AI broadly, we've always used some artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques to solve complex mathematical problems in the back end. But those are kind of, non-customer facing, just technology used to solve problems. If I think about what's happening now, I divide it into 3 parts. The first one is individual productivity of our team members. And this is, to me, I see a lot of potential for kind of what's happening and what will continue to happen in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months for everyone to be way more productive. We had a monthly town hall a couple of weeks ago where I was speaking to everyone in the company and I was saying, if you are less than 55, which is 100% of our employees, and you want to have a job in 5 years, not the Stashaway, in general, you should spend quite a bit of time in your evening, in your weekends, just trying to familiarize with these technologies and try to see whether you could do your work better by using this technology. I'm a firm believer that we can use this. A lot of people could use some of these new instruments to actually be more efficient, more effective, faster, and get to results from. So this is, to me, it's a kind of individual productivity is a core topic that I'm actually spending personally a lot of time on and pushing the organization to do so. Second bucket is on the investment side. We are an investment platform. Our core product is a kind of what the banks will call DPM. So it's a set of portfolios across asset classes. And so you could argue, why don't you use AI to now build these portfolios? And this is something I don't believe in, meaning that while we run a purely systematic framework, and our asset allocation is it's kind of data-driven and based on a framework, I do think that it's important that it's not a black box, but it's actually something that our investment team can explain, or I can explain in detail, as it's very, investing is not an exact science, and you need to be able to kind of look back and understand what's adding value, what's not adding value, and tweak allocations and understand that over time. So I don't believe in kind of giving just a set of data to an AI bot for asset allocation reasons. We are long-term investors. Probably the answer would be different if we were trying to do day trading and kind of be faster than the average market. Because we're long-term investor, asset allocation focused, I don't think there is a direct impact, at least for now, in the way we think about it. The third area is customer facing. And there are a few parts of it. So one of the use cases that everybody talks about is customer support, chatbots. Why don't chatbots have been horrible forever. Maybe now they might be less horrible and actually becoming better, and that I think is true. As a self-service platform, though, I actually think that it's important for us that we maintain a very clean and easy to access human-facing point of contact. So, our internal SLA is that we pick up the phone in 8 seconds, and that's a human being picking up the phone. We have a WhatsApp chat integrated with the app where, again, it's a human being responding. And I actually think it's very important we maintain that human approach because everything else is self-service. And so whenever a client has a question and wants to speak to someone, it needs to be extremely easy. And it needs to feel like you can whenever you have an issue, you can reach us, and it's very easy. So to me, this is key. Where, though, maybe going back to the first point, ChatGPT or generative AI more broadly can help is in making the customer service agents more efficient and more effective, kind of being able maybe to solve the problem at the first call because they can access information faster rather than saying, hey, let me call you back. So this is, I think, where there is potentially a lot of value. In terms of pure front end, so actual kind of user interface, you could argue that we could move from a way of building applications where people select from lists, like you have 3 options, you click on one with your finger, to a place where you write something and say, hey, I like to do this and this and this, and then there is a kind of ChatGPT-like interface that kind of gives you back a response. To me, that the jury is still out on that, meaning it's not clear to me that that's a better user interface. I think, I'm thinking about it in an experimental way. I think there is, it might or might not be better, and maybe some clients would prefer a more kind of conversational interface versus a more kind of a tree-based interface. Lastly, we talked earlier about localization, and I said I believe in having a common platform. And one of the reasons I said is that there is actually many commonalities between people living in Singapore, KL, Bangkok, etc. In reality is that there is, you take 2 45 years old managing directors at Maybank, one living in Singapore, one in KL, they have a lot in common. And then you take 2 23 years old working at whatever company, you can pick one in Singapore and one in KL, they have a lot of commonalities. So the commonalities are not in country, but are actually dispersed. So to me, personalization is not about making the Singapore app different from the Malaysian app. To me, this personalization is about making sure that every person in Singapore and every person in Malaysia and every person in Thailand, Hong Kong, and Dubai actually go through an experience that is truly personal, irrespective of where they're seated, where they are from. And that, I think, some of the new technologies actually enable, moving from pure data analytics to potentially using artificial intelligence to actually make those experiences unique.
Thanks for that, Michele. I think one of the key things I took away from that was, increase individual productivity by using these tools. There goes a lot of our weekends, but yeah, I think it's important. Now, Sam, I want to kind of rise up to 30,000 feet and kind of think about ASEAN and ASEAN enterprises and how they are positioned to leverage AI. Will they be able to command the space they occupy, especially with all the sort of geopolitical rivalries between the US and China? For example, the US has limited AI chip sales to China. And there's, and remember all the recent embargoes on Huawei and stuff like that. So will ASEAN have to choose sides in scaling their businesses and as well as innovating?
I think ASEAN is very good at not choosing sides, or we choose all the sides all at the same time. That's kind of one of our characteristics as a region, I guess. But more seriously, I think ASEAN enterprises won't choose sides. What will happen is ASEAN consumers will, and then the enterprises will follow. So from my perspective, I think there is a disconnect between some of the more traditional ASEAN models, business models, which are a bit more mercantile, and the opportunity is for ASEAN enterprises to really start becoming creators. So owning their own proprietary assets, whether they're digital assets or digitally enabled, and really owning the tech stack, because your customers could end up picking a non-ASEAN provider of a service, and then the data, the use cases, the ownership of the customer sort of leaves this part of the world. And nobody knows the ASEAN customer better than ASEAN enterprises, or at least that's the right to play, I think, and the right to win. And so for businesses that can really figure out how to incorporate AI into localized workflows, localized practices, ways of working, even to the extent of local languages, then these are the businesses that I'm really excited to engage with and see whether we can do something at Maybank. Because it's our customer, right? It's the ASEAN customer. That's who we service.
Thanks, Sam, for that. Michele and Jennifer, let me bring you here. And when, as an ASEAN bank, we are in pretty much most of the ASEAN countries. And one of the things that we see, and this is also shown by some of the reports by Temasek and Google, it's really the urban, richer consumer and their young digital native that is a bulk of the ASEAN digital economy. When you go out into rural areas, the lower income suburban consumers and the lower income urban dwellers have less participation. So how do you think digitalization and AI can drive economically sustainable and inclusive growth across these groups as well? And they're obviously the bigger groups. So maybe, Jennifer, you want to start, and then we can go to Michele.
So I think there is a quite big potential. So for enterprise side, actually I think recently when we see the opportunities, back to recent discussion, I think because before when we do the digital transformation, there is actually blocked by two things. Number one actually is unstructured data cleaning. So that's actually something we find is quite interesting. It's every time we embark with some use cases, there was a data issue there. Then because now you're using the foundation model, which will have a lower standard of the data, and actually you can jumpstart with enterprise provider like banks. You can using the AI much faster onboarding. So that's one part. Second part, I find recently the discussion we have is when we go to the digital transformation 5-year journey. So there's one part as either standardization, like a data flow, workflow, SOP part. Because once you have all the automation can driven by the foundation model, which is less high standard of the data. So automation actually jump much faster. So you can redesign the SOP much easier. So that part actually enable the banks actually can consider a lot of new opportunities for this new rich, all the very urban rich, all the digital people. Because what the use cases we find is recently there is a lot of things we find the population, the service you can offer to them is much better. And because when you come to the banking risk assistance and all things, so digital bank definitely benefits a lot of young people. And one side, they enjoy the benefits, for example, Indonesia, Malaysia, I think the growing young people can have access to the service, which is actually powered by the current AI. So that they actually can enjoy the more benefits without any credit history, but we grab your maybe telecom data, your e-commerce behavior, social media data, give them the access. Another part is for us, I think the young generation for digital transformation, guys, they are the people actually will drive all things. Most of our team member for doing the AI delivers, actually they can feel the digital benefits and they dive with us and figure out what exactly they can do. So fundamentally, actually, the people who understand ChatGPT, then they can use ChatGPT better. Not like people don't understand ChatGPT and guiding the ChatGPT direction, right? So that's actually something I find is quite interesting. So I feel, number one, the infra side, currently, you have opportunities to jumpstart. Because before you're far behind all the countries, but now because the opportunity comes everybody in the same place. Like we have same model, some with open source, some not. You can apply for that jumpstart. Second one is because of the people here is actually the economic growth. Actually, they have more ambitious and also opportunity to serve this unserved community. And it's actually the very growing community, so very dynamics. Third part, as Sam mentioned, a lot of people actually, day one, they don't have banks. They have digital banks, so they're digital native. And a lot of employee, we hire, day one is actually AI digital native employee. Day one is actually tell me, Jennifer, we actually can use, recently we hire some of the interns. I actually designed some kind of a graph for our events. Most of interns actually directly use ChatGPT, diffusions to design the picture. They don't actually ask me, I ask them to see, hey, can we actually building up the campaign like this and that? They don't. Actually, they actually counter propose me hey, this is a video can make, quick ones, and Jennifer, I cannot have 200 budget to make it, which is perfectly, I need to give in 5,000 to make the video parts, right? And second one's recently they have a lot of, content, and they told me Jennifer, I want to target the e-commerce industry. I said how? Then this is actually something find at JDI website. I asked ChatGPT, gave me 2 versions of a local English and Indonesia, Bahasa version. They use it quite well. So I guess that's actually something we see the opportunities because day one we're actually born as an AI employee side, and internally I quite agree. So I even told all my employees that we're gonna design our website. Before we have a huge budget. Now actually I gave $2,000 all access to a software and say give me a new one. And this is once actually, I estimate all the software costs and maybe take your 2 weeks. We can have new versions, maybe only cost $500. That's how I actually encourage all my young employees to do actually in dynamic industry. So I guess that's 2 things. We had the opportunity to enjoy the benefits of the AI jump because now everybody in the same line. And second one is because we have young employee community and all young digital native users, then actually it help us to push forward. So that's something I think is quite benefit.
That's interesting. So empower your employees as well to drive inclusivity. Michele, how do you drive inclusivity?
So I agree with what Jennifer was saying about the fact that some of the new technology, and I think generative AI particularly, can help give tools for being entrepreneurial to way more people, and maybe to your point earlier, spread out of the urban areas of Southeast Asia. But let me maybe focus more on the consumer side of things. So I think digitization over the last decade or so has broadened, I do think, access to a variety of different services across the region, thanks to lower cost to serve and just easier access. So if you think about e-commerce, for instance, 10 years ago didn't exist in the region, and the fact that now, if you live in Malaysian Borneo, you now have access to the same exact product catalog than if you lived in central KL without going to the local mall. Actually, that's a change in access to products, and I'm making maybe a stupid example, but in reality, that's even broader when you think about access to information, to knowledge, to learning, and that has, I think, a very significant impact on opportunities that actually spread across the region, irrespective of whether you grow up in KL or in some more rural parts of Borneo or another an Indonesian island somewhere. In terms of cost to serve, if I think about it from a financial services perspective, for instance, today, through digital technology, the ability to onboard KYC a client can be much lower than it used to be. And so for me, for instance, KYC in a client in KL or in a rural part of Borneo cost exactly the same, which is not true in an old system where you had to actually build a branch and have people going to the branch, because obviously you need a certain level of traffic to justify building a branch. And so again, it gives much easier access to the same services irrespective of where you are. Now, in our case, we are, because of what we offer, we make it simple to invest in a sophisticated manner. Our core clients are mostly going to be urban. Nevertheless, because in order to make it simple to try, we actually have a $0 minimum balance. We do see some of our clients actually coming from non-urban places, because again, it's easy, and because of lower cost to serve, it's actually still profitable for us to serve people that might, while obviously we prefer the clients with $10 million account, we also are happy to serve people that have $50, $100, $200 account, and we're actually able to do that profitably, again, thanks to the use of digital technology. So I think this is a Stashaway example, but if you scale it across the whole financial services industry or across sectors, actually the impact can be quite significant across the region.
Great, thanks, Michele. ChatGPT has been quite quiet throughout this session, so I want to bring her in now. And also, there's been quite a few audience questions on the same sort of theme, so let me ask you, ChatGPT, what are the ethical considerations businesses should consider when implementing AI strategies?
Sure, I understand your question. Let me explain it for you.
We lost
bias, Sure, I understand your question. Let me explain it for you. When implementing digitalization and AI strategies, businesses must consider ethical aspects like data privacy, algorithmic bias, transparency, accountability, and societal impact.
This is the alpha.
And ensure ethical implementation. Implementing digitalization and AI strategies without considering ethics can lead to various ethical consequences. These may include violations of data privacy, perpetuation of algorithmic biases, lack of transparency, accountability gaps, negative societal impacts, and erosion of trust. It is crucial to anticipate and address these consequences to ensure responsible and ethical deployment of digitalization and AI technologies.
Thanks, Dr. At least our jobs are safe. There's still glitches around. One of the things when I think about businesses, especially the startup scene and digital businesses around Asia, and Michele, you launched Stashaway a few years ago. Especially the fintechs, a lot of them were built during this period of low interest rates, low inflation, rising consumer affluence, as well as massive liquidity. Now, rates are higher, inflation is high, incomes are tightening, and liquidity is also kind of shrinking. So how do you think this is going to impact the fintech ecosystem? How do you think that it's going to evolve?
Yeah, so first of all, obviously the fintech ecosystem is very broad, and so different pockets of the ecosystem are impacted differently. Maybe one impact that is true across the board is cost of capital. So obviously cost of capital, especially private capital, over the last year and a half has changed dramatically. We went from extremely cheap capital in 2020, 2021 to extremely expensive capital over the last 12 to 15 months. What is the net effect of that is that you're going to see companies with strong unit economics continue growing, continue thriving, continue investing. You're going to see companies that maybe have less strong unit economics struggling a little bit more. And I think you will see across the board more attention to kind of a general cost structure. So you probably see less aggressiveness on marketing campaigns. You're going to see maybe companies hiring a bit more mindfully, and until another cycle starts, obviously, because we all know that it goes in cycles. So this is probably affecting the tech ecosystem overall, or actually every company overall, and across all pockets. Now, depending on which fintech specific sector you're looking at, the new environment has a different effect. For instance, if you look at it from an investment platform perspective like Stashaway, obviously, as you can imagine, or if you work in an investment world, you probably see it in your own books. People tend to invest more when markets are higher, invest less when markets are lower. Unfortunately, that's the opposite of what we should all be doing, but that's a human bias. And so what you will see as an investment platform is that in our case, flows move to our cash management product versus our, equity or balance products. And so what you need to do as a company is making sure that you actually have in a portfolio of offering a portfolio of products that actually cater to clients' needs across cycles. The reality is that if you want to build a long-lasting company, you can't build a company that only thrives in a certain macroeconomic cycle that may come every 10 years. You need to think about it across cycles, and this is true of every company. I'm assuming, I know it less well, of course, that when you look at companies that are doing lending, for instance, the high interest rates actually make some of the kind of core parts of the business model maybe more challenging and actually affect more directly unit economics. So I guess the short answer is there is a kind of broad effect from kind of cost of capital, but then when you look at each subsectors of financial services or fintech, if you want to just look at younger companies, you'll have different impact, and companies will need to think about how to thrive and build positive unit economics irrespective of where we are in the cycle.
Yeah, so long cycle, multi-cycle businesses. Thanks for that, Michele. Jennifer, I want to kind of bring you in here. And in my opening sort of statement, I talked about ASEAN having quite a few social challenges when it comes to healthcare, to education, to income inequality. How can this new paradigm of digitization and AI address some of these challenges?
So I think recently when we discussed with all the enterprise, right? So also the players, I think there was two there, the very big ones, and also the enterprise ones. Big ones means, for example, when you are using the currently the big large language model, you can deploy for the medicine discover much easier. Because before you're taking 10 years to do the research and you have the prototype. Now it's actually you have a lot of things quickly can jump up. So this is actually the layer one. The layer two is actually I come to most cases not only for healthcare but also financial industry, FMCG industry. So recently we deploy one of the cases. We find it's quite amazed. Maybe I like to share to how using the large language model to the company, and actually gave really we rethink about how we design our new product too. So before I think we having the more powerful tool. Then I go back to the pain points, which actually existing customer have before. So when I was actually working with one of our FMCG customer, at that time, so we help, they have use cases they're using the big call center to outreach all the islands and tell them, hey, gather the orders. So the pain point before is two things. Number one, they have big teams. They need to actually operate this heavily. And second one, all the data they collect from the Papa Mama shops is not so accurate, not so correct. And also the whole workflow is actually very painful. So that's something you need to check human and also organizing the errors and the logistics have the problem. So that's the whole thing. It's an existing pain point. So last year we jump in, actually really try to do the automation using our localized system. So helping them to start and build. So using our bot to call the Papa Mama shops and say, hey, how many order you want? And also we collect directly and we transcribe the intention into the different orders. But at that time, our accuracy for the order rates starting from 60%. And we're using 6 months, train, very hard, and train to the 80%. That's the cases we did before. But for the enterprise side, they still have the automation problem because I have 100 people team, I have 20 people live there, and actually I need to check all the things. So for us, we think about, the challenge for us is because before the SQU of itself is very challenging. For example, if you have applying A and ABC, applying ABD, if actually a small pronunciation wrong, then your whole order is wrong. And also that's something. And this year, Q1, I discussed with my internal team, we must have something trial products. Then I will come back to this FMCG customer and say, hey, this is things can you actually using your current database, actually, we want to actually train our new model, but we see what the result looks like. Then the first days, we deploy a model and we train. Just, I think, the 2 weeks jump directly for order rates from 80% to 95%. It's a big jump. So why? Very simple. When some use cases like this, so when the customer, they want order things, Before, when we order things like this, so I want macaroni A, macaroni B, but if you imagine most users are like that. But when the customer said that, they will say, oh, I want 5 packs of the red, 2 packs of white. It's really confused my boss. Then the experience will be turned to be like, okay, can you repeating the name of the products and the number of the products? Then the user experience is not there. So that's actually the case 1, which we do for the 80% automation, right? Now, the model can really be more intelligent, ask, oh, actually our Y1, we have 2 SKU. One's Marpolo A, another one's Marpolo B. Which one you would like? So that's how we actually increase the order accuracy rates. That's something, right? And second case is like, customer very happy is about, it's like most FMCG customer, I think even banks, so you have more budget to promoting new products. Like, but if you actually do the previous use case like us with all the operation side, so when we cannot actually, we are quite afraid of promote the new product because usually you will say like, oh, actually I have macaroni A, B, C. You order this one before, A and B before. Now we have C. Can you try it? Then the most customer will ask us really a lot of questions and see how the taste looks like, where it deliver, how is the promotion time. And if your boss is very smart enough, then the situation will be like, oh, forget about this. So you drop the case. And how right now is like, what do we do is like, they actually, when they address specific questions, because the model is smart enough, and we're getting not only information, not only for the voice data, but all the product information, website information, all the video information, make it more like, can solving the more long-tail problems. Then like, we even can promote more stuff in the one order. So that's at layer 1, which we found come back and say, hey, automation rates, we jump from 95, 96. So this is the first layer down. And second is I like after we release this kind of things and like second we run the campaign. Second is I'm talking with the digital transformation officer and say like hey Jennifer, now when we reach the 97, what's the next? And I was like, do you think what's next we can do? Then I said like I found that my human error rates for my order taking for the whole is roughly 2 to something %. So he said like before you guys actually have processes like I take an order. Then like, I have human to double check with that. Then like I put it into the system by human. That's one part of that for especially the 20% error rates one. And now like since you have seen human error rates, just go integration with my system law. Then like the parts are purely automated and the data flow is actually automated. That's most important. And last part recently we actually try to do is actually recently they asked us, Jennifer have phase 3. Don't go. We still have model, but we don't have phase 3. What's the phase 3 looks like? It's very simple. Before, when you're actually using all the CRM data, all that inventory data, you see the trends. You have fancy people jumping the slides and tell you, hey, boss, that's a graph A, B, that's a trends, that's XQ, season 1 and season change. That's how you present to a boss. But how you imagine? I think the people here all have some assistant or like analysis support you. Okay, do you like this way, your analysis reporting to you? Actually, you usually just ask like, hey, I have 2 products. Tell me the season 1. Like, what's the change? Is it getting better? Which area getting better? It's how a human being like getting report line more natural. It's not like you ask someone sit together with your graph and you go through everything. It's not so efficient. So that's actually phase 2 is like they ask us to have design the internal like research, small ChatGPT into their like company data. Then you can ask, tell me like inventory change. And tell me which part I can promote. And even they can counter-propose and say, things like this 2 SKU in this region is increased. You should prepare and do the forecasting into the manufacturer side. That's 3 things actually we do to solving the cases. I feel like most people are talking the terms, and I jump in the cases study and see like what exactly we do for the Q1 and share with you. I think the same problem can solve. Automating with high accuracy rates with the current operation in the banks. Second one, redesign the workflow, like data flow in the middle term. And last part is like, when you have insight, you can multiple insight, we call it conversational insight, can benefit all the employee of the company, internal, your HR policy, external, like, your data information for your certain product things. This actually all can be actually really solved in our daily-to-daily life.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. So yeah, so basically increasing speed, increasing efficiency, and also reducing friction. Those are, I think, very important points. We are running very tight on time, but I think one of the more common recurring audience questions is, and I'm going to bring ChatGPT here. What are the skills and competencies that will be most valuable in a digitally transformed workforce, and how can businesses foster a culture of continuous learning and upskilling. I think Michele mentioned a little bit earlier on. ChatGPT, what do you think?
Thank you for this great question, and I believe many of us here would like to know. In a digitally transformed workforce, skills and competencies like digital literacy, adaptability, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration become highly valuable. Businesses can foster a culture of continuous learning and upskilling by providing training programs, encouraging knowledge sharing, promoting a growth mindset, and creating opportunities for employees to apply their skills in real-world scenarios. Embracing lifelong learning, supporting professional development, and recognizing and rewarding upskilling efforts are also essential in nurturing a culture of continuous learning. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Chat, for that. We are out of time, so I've got time to squeeze in one last question, and I'm going to bring ChatGPT, and then I'm going to get Jennifer to close. And I think, again, this is a question that a lot of the audience is concerned about. And so let me kind of contextualize this. The philosopher Yuval Noah Harari has said that the large language models we have has allowed AI to hack the operating system of civilization. Nobel laureate Maria Ressa says releasing AI into the wild is like open sourcing the Manhattan Project, which produced the first nuclear bomb. What are the potential risks of widespread AI adoption, and how can some of these risks be mitigated? So let's ask the AI first, and then let's ask Jennifer. Chat?
Thank you for this opportunity and great question. Yuval Noah Harari and Maria Ressa have raised valid concerns. The potential risks of widespread AI adoption are significant, and it's important to address them. Everyone must acknowledge concerns such as job displacement, algorithmic biases, privacy breaches, security threats, and the concentration of power. To mitigate these risks, we need a multifaceted approach. Robust regulations and ethical frameworks can provide guidelines for responsible AI development and deployment. Transparency in algorithms and decision-making processes can help mitigate biases. Investing in reskilling and upskilling programs can help individuals adapt to the changing job landscape. Collaboration between industry, academia, and policymakers is crucial to ensure a balanced and inclusive approach to AI adoption. Ultimately, it's essential to prioritize human well-being and actively monitor and address the potential risks as we navigate the path of widespread AI adoption.
Thanks. Jennifer, last word.
I think, because Tyne's here, I think it's just one simple thing. So if you want to adopt the large language model, so currently you have a lot of individual models. You can actually really just have the one own enterprise model. That's it. So sitting in your environment, your own security requirements, and starting with a simple use cases, a pain point you had before, and starting then you jumpstart. So that's actually when they see the things like big ecosystem building, that's one part. Second one's are really if you want to catch the trend to be the digital transformation leaders, then in the part is just using your own model. I think there not only us, actually a lot of people actually starting to think about this and there's make a deployment. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. There's a lot more that we could have covered, but I want to thank all my panelists, Sam, Michele, Jennifer, as well as ChatGPT for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.